And that's how even after winning the lottery and having like 10 million, I lost it all in the matter of 3 days. So take that to heart as you move forward through life. All right, realistically, here we are, guys. Happy August 21st, 2024. Hope you're doing well today. It's Wednesday, which is pretty awesome. For a brain break today, we might do a little Wine About It Wednesday. I like alliteration, which do you guys know what alliteration means? So you might think something to do with literature, and probably sometimes. I like to do a lot of random questions. So whether you've heard it or not, sometimes we'll do Feelings Friday, where we share our feelings. FF, right? Feelings Friday. We'll do Talk About It Thursday, Wine About It Wednesday. We'll do variations of those. I don't have good ones for Monday or Tuesday. Yes, for sure, but I'm not going to make you guys tacos in here probably. But we'll do a short brain break. If you have stuff to whine about, awesome. If we want to just do like random questions that maybe you've never thought about, that's also cool with me. Now, it's going to look funny on my page, but remember, this is the last thing in your notes is agriculture. Okay, we're looking at the roles of a biologist, and there's a lot of them. Going through, I just need to check because we're hitting them in a different order because I was asking you guys to help me come up with them. We have disease research, we have diversity, we have evolution to work with. I would say it almost fits within this research disease. We have agriculture. There's a couple more that I'm going to hit. So, what's up? Reproduction. Where would a biologist need to study reproduction? Possibly in evolution. How do viruses and diseases reproduce within the human body, within the natural environment? Sure. I need to make a little addition to yesterday's stuff. We talked about a super scary disease where people become contagious via sweat or bodily fluids from like diarrhea or vomit or whatever it might be. What was the disease? Ebola. Nice job with that. No, but you don't, not everybody dies. It's depending on the strain, it can be scary high, like 80% lethal, which is super duper high for a disease. But if somebody is in the right advanced medical situation, maybe their body can fight it off, and with medical assistance, they can live through it. But it just depends. With that, though, Ebola, I told you guys about it, and I wasn't trying to scare you. I hope that it wasn't like that. Where in the world do Ebola outbreaks most commonly occur? Africa, and it's named Ebola because the Ebola River. And just to be a little bit more clear with it, Uganda is where you would find the Ebola River. I'm not going to test you on that, just so you know, but I thought that I should be more specific than I was yesterday. Okay, so possibly reproduction and stuff. Certainly something that one should be concerned about if you intend or do not intend to reproduce. But today we're going to hit two more right off the bat, and then we'll switch gears a skosh. So, two more, and I'm just going to continue on. In your notes, it's probably just directly underneath of it. I don't care how you really take your notes, but in my notes, it's all right here. If anybody ever needs copies of these, because, again, I talk too fast, I can give you these. I'm still going to make you write stuff down, but if I'm talking too fast, just let me know and I'll hook you up. Okay. Two more things that I think are worth mentioning. Preservation, which that's kind of a fancy word. What is preservation? And here I think maybe that reproduction might show up. What do you got?
I feel like try to preserve or try to save something decomposing.
Hey, awesome. So we can think about preservation in terms of food, and you're absolutely right. Like jelly, jam, and preserves, those are all just ways to preserve that food. We add, as humans, a ton of different types of preservatives to certain types of food, especially if it's something that you buy that you think probably should be microwaved or it should be refrigerated, but you don't have to because they've added something to it to try to help that. Okay, so with preservation, what I'm thinking about specifically is preservation, and you might call this conservation instead, which if you want to include that, you can. You oftentimes will see very specific groups known as conservationists, but you could also say preservationist. Conservationist sounds a little more natural to me, but both of them will essentially mean the same thing. So if we think in the context of biology. Maybe I don't want things to rot. Yeah, like I want food to be able to be packaged in, I don't know, where do we get bananas from?
Banana cheese.
Sure, they come from trees. That's not the answer I was expecting, but you're absolutely right. Where does, like, if you go to Safeway tonight and buy a banana, where did it come from? We didn't grow it here.
Mexico. Lower 48.
Maybe, so unlikely the lower 48. Maybe Mexico. I bet maybe the Philippines. I think Fiji produces a ton of bananas. Do they not? I could be wrong. Nope, Fiji is a small nation in Oceania or Polynesia Islands, probably further west than or east than Polynesia. Lots of our bananas come from Chile, is where I know they come from. Chile and South America. So the west coast, I'm sorry, of South America. Anyway, with that, preservation can certainly be looked at there. But in the context of animals, let me think of a specific animal that we might have here. Otters. Have you guys seen the sea otters here?
Yeah.
Okay, have you ever seen one up close?
Yeah.
They're so much bigger than I thought they were. They get big. Like, they can be 6 feet tall. They're as big as you guys. But they look small because you see them so far away, right? Similarly, have you guys seen the dashed lines on the road as you drive by?
Yeah.
They're also longer than you are. But because you always see them from a vehicle traveling at 30 miles per hour, they don't look like it. They look super short. They are longer than you. The lines on the road. If you don't trust me, well, we don't have dashes right here, but next time you're on the straightaway and there's no traffic, pull over. Do you guys drive yet?
Yeah.
Okay. Be careful. Pull over, and when there's no traffic, go out and look, and you'll see, like, those lines are huge.
Wait,
Yeah.
See, otters can stand up, right?
Depends on where they would be, I suppose.
Just imagine standing up.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm always afraid that they're going to, like, when I walk my dogs along the beach, they have been known to grab dogs.
They do.
They can, and they have. It's never happened to me, but I'm afraid of one drowning my dog.
They don't happen to be very strong, do
They're probably, I mean, in the water, I'm sure they're stronger than me. Like, I can swim, but not as good as an otter. Anyway, I'm sidetracking. Okay, when we look at this, sea otter populations are getting large right now. That is a very concentrated effort because sea otters were really, really valuable resource to people who are settling in this region a long time ago. Why?
because of their clothes. Like
Yeah, the pelt, right? Russian pelt collection of otters here almost led them to extinction. Now, when we talk about preservation in the terms of biology and especially conservation and maybe ecology, where we study specific environments, it's how do we prevent such things from, like that, from going extinct? Or how do we save a population? So we'll say prevent extinction. That's certainly something that a biologist in the field of preservation or conservation would work for. And sometimes it's worth mentioning, by preventing extinction, it seems like we're going to do some counterintuitive things. I don't know where you stand on guns. Don't really care where you stand on guns. I'll tell you, this is not a political belief. I am pro-hunting. And specifically, where I'm from, hunting is a conservation method. We hunt animals to stop them from going extinct, which sounds almost silly. Why does that make sense, though? How can I say that by me going out and hunting an animal, whether it be with a bow or a gun or whatever, it doesn't matter, how can that help them from going extinct? Yeah, overpopulation and like overuse of resources is a huge threat. Where I'm from, deer are really common. We have to hunt a lot of deer because if we don't hunt deer, the deer will breed, they'll eat all the food, and then all these deer that have been bred because of like huge amount of food now die of starvation. It is a method to help cull the herd in order to help that total population at large. So we can use preservation to prevent extinction, whether it's through hunting or captive breeding programs, such as like pandas are almost extinct. They're rebounding now. There was a time where bald eagles were almost extinct, like they were endangered for a long time. Here you would never know that because we have such a large population. Yes, sir?
What about white rhinos?
White rhinos are nearly extinct. We may be down to the last white rhino. It's either the last white rhino or the last black rhino.
I thought they were like trying to. I don't know what they were doing, but like they were trying to, reproduce.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of different fields that would work with that, whether it's bringing an animal back from extinction via cloning or some sort of fancy genetic engineering or however we might look at it. But that's all work in preservation and conservation, absolutely. Now, beyond just preventing extinction, one other thing is that extinction can be, isn't always, but can be the result of like what we as humans do, right? Like if tigers live in the forest in India and India grows and cuts down all the forest to build cities for people, then the tiger is like, maybe we don't eat tigers, but we're still like impacting them. So one of the other roles of a preservationist might be, rather than just prevent extinction through specific programs, but it might be to study human impact. And that's an important thing to consider if you're trying to expand into places that maybe were traditionally wild or had large diversity of animal life, that if we take that away, then they're going to struggle. All right, last little piece, and there's certainly going to be more things than I'm mentioning right now, but these are just like the quick, easy to talk about and think about ones. Last one, technology. Okay, this is where we start to blend. Maybe it is a pure biologist, but it's also maybe a biologist working in tandem with a physicist or a chemist or engineers and like whoever else in a field. Okay, when we think about technology, specifically, I'm going to refer to it as biotech, so that's biological technology. Can you guys think of any biological technology that you're aware of today? Say it again? What do you mean? So you can do in vitro fertilization, absolutely. So I'm going to say IVF is what that is known as. We're not going to talk specifically about it, but there is a way for maybe a woman who cannot naturally reproduce that she can still have a child that's genetically hers. It can happen. IVF is what that's called. In vitro fertilization, IVF. Okay. Now, this list is going to get bigger, so instead of just going straight down, I'm going to have a bunch of little short comments, so I'll just do it like this on my notes. Okay, IVF is one. If somebody loses a hand, it means they can never do anything again, like that works with their hands, or no?
No.
Why?
Because you can like preserve it.
So maybe, like sometimes, and it's crazy to think, but if my hand is cut off and I preserve it well enough and I get to a doctor, they can put it back together and connect my nerves. What if it goes through a meat grinder and that's no longer an option? Holy prosthetics. So artificial limbs or prosthetics. They can be metal. They're not always. Prosthetics are getting crazy today. Modern prosthetics, super expensive, first of all, but they're to the point where we can connect it, and by thought, just like I do this by using my brain, prosthetics can now do this by using your brain, and you can connect it with computer signals, and it's crazy. Okay, so maybe it's prosthetic devices. Artificial limbs certainly work. So there's a few more that are super valuable that have been around for a while. We're going to say blood storage or transfer, because just the transfer, that's been able to do for a long time. Back in the day, if somebody had lost a lot of blood, and even today you could still do it in a war zone if you didn't have, I am trying to spell and write something different, I'm sorry. Blood storage and remember this is my and, transfer. But it is a legitimate technique where you've obviously all seen IVs going to people, and in a hospital you'll have a blood bag hanging there, right? And blood will be pumped into them. But back in the day it was just, I put an IV in my arm, and if Jade here needed blood, we just put an IV in his arm, and it goes from me to him just directly like this without having to store it in the bag. Now, if you want to have blood that can be, put into people, not when we're connected like that, you need a way to store it. You need a way to separate the blood cells, the red blood cells and the white blood cells, out from what is known as blood plasma, which happens in a fancy process where they spin it and it separates, and your blood is actually red blood cells and like this yellowish colored liquid that can be used for a lot of different things called blood plasma, which we will get to talk about more specifically eventually as well. Okay. Other than that, we've already talked a little bit about the agriculture, but there's a lot of technology that goes towards like making agriculture better. Yes, sir.
You said blood storage, like they separate the white blood cells and the red blood cells, right?
So it's more of separating the blood cells and the blood plasma.
But like, if you were to do like an immediate transfer, what would happen to the white blood cells? It goes
So yeah, well yeah, they would transfer in too. It depends on like obviously, maybe not obviously. The more if you're ill and like have an infection, you'll have more white blood cells in your body. But they're in your blood too. Yep. Yep. Okay. So I'm good with these for now. Questions, concerns? Everybody feel cool that like, hey, holy cow, biology has a ton of different applications that maybe you haven't thought of. Cool. All right. So we are going to move on. Remember that these indicate they were little subsections, these tildes. To start a main section, do you remember what I use?
The dash.
So a bullet, a dot. And I'm going to kick back left here to get a new bullet because we have a new main point out of 1.1. What color am I using today? Okay. Just stick with green? I'm good with that. That is green, right?
That is green. I think it's like
Okay. We'll make it greener, if that makes sense. Okay. So moving forward, we have a bit more to talk about because we've already decided that biology is just the study of life, right? Bio, life, logos, study, and knowledge. So as we're looking at these, we need to make sure that we can get on the same page about what life is. And it's kind of a deep question in all reality. But our second main topic, which we'll start right now, is going to be focused on the characteristics of life. Seems like an easy question. Sometimes it is, not always. The characteristics of life. All right. So, first off, I'm going to ask a question. I'm going to give you guys a minute or two because y'all killed it yesterday when I asked you to talk with one another. B-Dub, you were the note taker yesterday. Is that correct? Yeah. Somebody else gets to do it today. Don't care who. But I'm going to give you 2 minutes without just reading the text, which if you've already read it, I can't make you unread it. That'd be crazy. I want you to come up with what does it mean or what does it require that we can count something as life? What is required for us to say it's alive or was alive at some point? 2 minutes on the clock, starting right meow.
who's writing?
Hey, give me something. What is life?
It has something to reproduce, some kind of reproduction.
Okay, so it must be able to reproduce? Okay. Do you want me to just do it with words or do you want an example? And I'm going to write all these down, and I'm just going to put questions. You don't have to write these just so I can get a good feel for it. I'm going to try to prove you wrong. We'll turn off the light so you can see it. All right. Check it out. What is this? What do I have here? Okay, this is fire, yeah? Hey, this is reproducing itself, right? Like, I'm not going to burn a piece of paper, but I think I just reproduced there. I can do it again. Hey, look, this fire led to this fire. Fire's alive?
No.
Oh. Hold on here. We must, like, is reproduction necessary then?
What do you mean?
Do you have to be able to reproduce to be life?
No. All life in my like from what I know, all life produces.
That is a great point. I'll tell you, unfortunately, that's not the case.
Why is that?
You guys know what a lion is?
Lion?
A lion.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a big cat, right? You know what a tiger is?
Yeah.
It's also a big cat. Are they different?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're different species, right? They can breed. They can breed. They make what is known as a liger. Like, they're gigantic.
Or take young.
Ligers cannot reproduce. They are born, they're sterile.
Well,
Is a liger alive?
yeah.
Oh, but it can't reproduce.
Well, that's because it's hybridly made. It's not natural for it. Like you can't
So-
make a lion and a tiger reproduce. It's like
You absolutely can.
well, you can, but you need like human to do something.
I don't think so.
Because
If they're so, maybe we can use a different one because those are kind of aggressive animals that you might not expect to be around one another. You guys know what a donkey is?
yeah.
You know what a horse is? They will breed. They can breed. They are different animals, but they can breed. What do they produce? Do you know the name of it?
Llamas.
A mule.
Like,
A llama's its own whole different thing. A mule. Mules are born sterile, but they do have it naturally. Like Sometimes donkeys and horses wind up in the same place. They breed. They have offspring that cannot reproduce. So maybe reproduction is sometimes considered as a trait or something that you would expect to find with life. But I'll tell you, I don't think it's necessary. So let's get another one. Let's see if this works like this or has that. Oh, it did. Cool. Let's try a different one. What else you got? So reproduction, maybe. Cells. That one is a good one. I'll tell you, I agree. I can't even argue against it. To be alive, you must be made of cells to some degree. Now, I'll get this in a list for you guys. Like, we'll get it nicely written in things. How many cells?
Depends.
Could it be one?
It depends on how much the creature needs to survive.
Okay, love it. I'll tell you, we can have single-celled organisms. And that's the word that we're going to become really familiar with, is the idea of an organism. But you can also have multicellular organisms, right? Now, there is a weird little area here. Viruses, there's not really an agreed upon thing whether they are alive or not. You could make the argument either way, but they are certainly made of smaller pieces, proteins, and cells and such. Anything else you guys came up with? Organisms. What's an organism? So an organic form of life, love that language there. Yeah, I'm good with that. Let's jump in there, and I'm actually going to start writing a little bit here. When we look at an organism, I love your definition, Bobby. I'm going to use a slightly different one. In our planet, which we're on which planet?
Earth.
Okay, on Earth, organic means something very specific. Now, you can use it to say like, oh yeah, we never use pesticides and we only like whispered sweet stories to our plants every night, like whatever, however hippy dippy you want to get, or not. Like there's a label that organic and it means something specific, right? Now, in reality, organic on our planet means has carbon. The element carbon, which is just like coal, has carbon somewhere in its structure. That is, there's whole fields and whole universities committed to the study of organic chemistry, which is based around carbon atoms. Okay, you're a carbon-based life form. I'm a carbon-based life form. Do aliens exist, you think?
No.
You don't think so? Okay, I don't know either way. If they do exist, they might be carbon-based. They might not. Like, we only know what we look like and how we behave. Now, for here, without thinking organic, which is just something we're going to say has to happen for life in our world, we're going to say that anything that has or once had and I'm going to use either a colon or I prefer the ... the ellipses, because all of a sudden we're going to get many of the things, like several of them, and we're going to see if you have more. An organism, anything that has or once had, if it happens to be extinct and dead at this point, and we're going to start to make our list. So right off the bat, one of them that you guys said that I loved, made of cells. Okay. So you were perfect, whoever came up with that one. Something that has to be cells for us to consider life as from the lens of biology. So looking at this, there's an immediate follow-up question. What's a cell? Ooh, it's a building block of life. I'm okay with that. Like that's a nice definition. I'm going to be real specific with the language, but know that building block of life, I'm cool with it. With the exception that one could say that, hey, certain proteins and like DNA might be considered the building blocks of life, and maybe it's not the whole cell, and a whole lot, like we got to be more specific. We're going to say in here, when we're talking about cells, this is going to be the basic unit of structure and function. The basic unit of structure and function in all living things. Okay, That means bacteria, which might be single-celled or multi-celled, they have cells. Viruses do not have the traditional sense of a cell, but they do exhibit a lot of these different characteristics that we're about to go through, which is why it's so weird to try to classify certain viruses. Now, if you have a single cell, if you have I'm going to say a cycle, like think of a bicycle, has how many wheels? 2. What if it has 3? A tricycle, what if it has 4?
Just like
A quad cycle would be an okay, a tetracycle would be an okay weird, but that'd be a weird way. What about 1?
unicycle.
So 1 is uni, right? So check it out. Within our cells, we're just going to have like little dashes in here, or since it's a follow-up to that, we can use those arrows some more. Would you prefer dash or arrow? Do you not care?
No.
Okay, I like this one. Okay, so we could be unicellular, which means how many?
One.
Okay, 1 cell. You guys ever had strep throat?
Yeah.
So it's a sore throat where your tonsils get really big and you wind up having to get antibiotics from the doctor to treat it.
Is that when like you eat too much sugar?
No, that would not be from that. It's just a sore throat. Like it'll go through the school. You've probably all had it, is my guess. But strep throat is caused by a very particular bacterium. Do you want the? I'm not going to give you the formal name here. I'm just going to say strep throat. This is a bacteria, and I'm going to write it. You can just write strep. That's the shorthand for it. But it's actually streptococcus. So as we look at this, a very particular bacteria known as streptococcus is what causes those severe symptoms that you'll encounter with strep throat. It is a single-celled bacteria. You can just call it strep. I'm okay without having the big fancy name. Single-celled bacteria, it causes chaos in your systems. If any of you have ever had your tonsils out and had tonsillitis, itis meaning inflammation of your tonsils is often a symptom that you might get from streptococcus. So if you lost your tonsils or they were taken out when you were young, maybe it's because you kept getting strep throat and your tonsils just couldn't handle it. Okay, beyond that though, you might have single-celled organisms. Question?
You get your tonsils out?
Oh yeah.
Doesn't that mean you can't like, what is oh, I thought it was like that one that floats.
No, that's your uvula. Like the dangly in the back of your throat?
Yeah.
Yep, that's your uvula. Your tonsils, if you feel here, if you guys ever get sick or when you get sick, because we're in a school, you might feel this swell up a little bit. And like when you swallow it hurts, you might be feeling your tonsils being inflamed.
Oh,
If
when
you,
swallow it hurts.
sometimes, yeah, it depends on how severe. If you have a really bad case of tonsillitis, you might get what are called tonsil stones, which are super gross. But if you open your mouth and look in the mirror, you might see like white dots on your tonsils. If it gets really, really bad, which it happens, those are your tonsils. They are part of your lymphatic system, which is a part of your immune system, and you can get them taken out. Yep, absolutely. They used to take them out all the time with people. Anyway, you can be unicellular, or instead of having a single cell, you might have multiple, and we would call that what cellular? Boom, multicellular. Can you think of a single multicellular organism?
Us?
Hey, yeah, you and me, right? Hey, I have exactly us written on my notes, so that's perfect. Humans. Okay. So we have to be made of cells. That's easy. What other sort of characteristics did you guys come up with on your list there?
Something that needs something to live. Like
There's like two. For me, I interpret it as like two needs. Like you need like your heart and brain, like your cells and stuff to live, or you need like something like good hot like food,
Okay.
vitamins, proteins too.
So I'm gonna argue against one of those points.
Which is
You do not need a brain to live.
oh,
Jellyfish are alive. Jellyfish don't have brains.
do they have heart?
Kind of. They're weird. Bacteria do not have brains. They don't have hearts. Like if it's a single cell, hearts are made of a bunch of different heart cells. If you're a single cell, you certainly can't have a heart. You can't have a brain because you're only one cell. So that part of it can be a little bit more like nebulous is a word that I love. You've probably never heard that word in your life. Do you know what a nebula is?
Yeah.
It's that they're space clouds is what they are. So when you look at like a beautiful night sky and you see the Milky Way and it looks like kind of cloudy, that you're looking at a nebula is what you're looking at. It's just a big collection of dust. Could you see through like fog easily? It's kind of like hidden, right? Nebulous just means like unclear, but I think it's a prettier word than unclear. So there's your daily vocab, nebulous. Okay, the function of like brains and stuff, that can be a gray area or a nebulous kind of thought. However, the other part was super important. You said that they have to somehow have some sort of food or something in that process, right? As we look at that, we're going to say for that characteristic, which is another good one, we require something. Now, if it's food and we talk about food, you're probably thinking about meat or fruit or vegetables. You're thinking of food as a human perspective, right? Or maybe even a mammalian or mammalian if you're thinking about mammals. Like mammals mostly eat meat. Some of them only eat herbs and grass and stuff, but some eat both. Are there other living things that don't eat meat or plants? Jellyfish. So they eat animals. They'll eat plankton and stuff that are floating. Sloths will eat fruit and bugs and stuff, so they'll eat other animals.
What is animals that you said that eat bugs? Oh, yeah.
So they'll eat insects. We'll talk about the classification and stuff of all that. I heard one of you guys talk about it. Because somebody said bones somewhere along the way, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then like you don't need bones to be alive. But there was another, I would use the example jellyfish is the one I just used, but I heard somebody else say, wait, bones, what about
Fossils.
fossils? So some fossils had bones, right? Do you think of anything that's alive that doesn't have a bone? Other than jellyfish?
Sure.
That's a great one. Sharks don't have bones. You are right.
Oh, actually.
Cartilage.
What?
They are cartilaginous fish. They do not have bones. Man. What'd you guys have for lunch yesterday?
That was like chips.
It was chips? What are chips made of? Oh, okay. Do potatoes eat meat?
Like,
No. They might be made of wheat as well, or corn. Holy plants! There's a whole huge portion of it. Okay, so plants don't eat meat, right? They don't eat plants mostly. But when we eat, we do it to get what? Energy. Boom. Life. No matter what it is. An organism requires energy. And sorry about the awkward space. I will fix it. We have to have energy. Now, how this energy is gathered is very different depending on what sort of organism you're looking at, right? So I'm going to say requires energy, and I'm going to be more specific, to fuel life functions. And that can mean different things depending on how you're looking. Okay. With that, there are different types of energy that different organisms might need. And we're not going to approach this from a physics point of view, which is the study of energy and those sorts of things. But we are going to make sure that we consider that, hey, human knowledge is still evolving. How do we get energy? Okay, so I eat food, but it's not energy yet.
You have to decompose.
So it's decomposes rot. Be really careful with that. We don't have a rotting system in our guts. There's another word that starts with a D, though. So that starts with a V, I would argue.
Beer.
D, delta. Ends with igest.
Digest.
Oh my, digestion. So for this, maybe this energy for us and other animals like us comes in the form of digestion. Okay. Now, digestion, the way that we get energy from our food is a crazy process. As it moves through your intestines, energy is taken out of it, and obviously anything that's left gets excreted. But as we're looking at digestion, what we are doing is we are just making ourselves chemical energy. So there is a chemical process happening within our bodies and within every animal's body from the food that they consume that converts it to energy, that then converts it to certain compounds and proteins that will allow cells to continue to function. Okay, not everything digests though, and we talked about plants. They don't eat unless some plants do, and that's a specific case, right? Like Venus flytraps are the ones you talked about yesterday. How do plants get energy? From the sun. They take that sunlight and they convert it to energy as well, right? So if we look at that process, I heard somebody say it. photo, as in light, and synthesis, which is his creation. To synthesize is to create. So they are making energy through light, which coincidentally is still chemical. Now, you may look at that and go, wait. I think it's solar. But they are taking that solar energy and converting it into energy within them, their own internal structures. Okay. Now, digestion and photosynthesis are the two main ways that energy is gained by animals. There are animals on our planet that will never see light and might not ever encounter other animals in their entire lives. So they exist in very specific regions, like in deep sea, where you have thermal vents coming up, where we thought life couldn't exist. Like, it can. And hopefully we get a chance to look into those. But these are the two main ones, right? Got to have energy. Okay. Other things that might have come up in your list.
Something doesn't move.
It has to move?
Yeah.
Something has to move to be considered alive.
No.
So it doesn't. I thought you said it did. So which one? And this is the part where, like, I'm not being a jerk. I'm just trying to encourage it. Does it have to move itself?
Not really. It has to. I don't know.
So how much of it has to move? Stuff within its own structure? Does it have to be able to stand up and walk? Like, what do you mean move?
It can. Either internally or externally.
Okay, so you're thinking there must be some sort of movement with it. I'm trying really hard to come up with one that doesn't, and this is going to blow your minds. Lots of jellyfish don't propel themselves at all. They move, but they aren't moving. They're being moved. Jellyfish don't have the dexterity to, like, move themselves around. They rely on the currents to, like, push them around as they're going. So they don't move themselves. The ocean moves them. Does that count? Are they still alive? So trash that gets moved by the ocean, it moves the same way. It's not alive. But obviously there's other characteristics that we need, right? I'm going to hold off on doing that movement thing directly. Now, you guys are, like, around the right idea. But I would be wary of just movement. If somebody is knocked unconscious, they no longer move, but they certainly could still be alive, right? Now, you even said something internally or externally, which is a great distinction to make, yeah? Because obviously blood is still moving through their bodies, things like that. The way that I want to word this, just to allow ourselves that little bit of leeway in case we encounter situations like that, is that we need some sort of response, or to be able to respond to stimulus, or to stimuli is the actual word. Okay. A response to some sort of external stimuli is necessary for life. Now, those responses can be, like, super varied, again, depending on the sort of organism that we're considering. Let's make sure that we're all cool with this. I'm going to sneak in a definition here. What does the word stimulus mean? So a signal, as in what? So I don't think that radioactivity I would consider as a stimulus, unless you were looking at how does radioactivity stimulate, like, people. For example, if I'm standing in front of a bunch of radioactive stuff, I'm going to develop blisters on my skin. I will get burned by it. But I would be careful of that, because what if I use fire instead? Like, if I put fire on my skin, it'll burn me, right? I'll blister, I'll burn, I'll change color, like, all those things happen. It's like I'm reacting to the stimuli. What if I put fire in a rock? So it does depend on the rock. That's a great point. It might melt the rock. It won't feel it, that's for sure. But if I'm, like, in a coma, maybe I don't feel it either. But my skin burns and changes color. Will the rock, like, blacken and change color and get hot and stuff? Like, it reacts as well. Not in the same way, but, like, there is something there that maybe we could try to, and maybe hopefully I'm not being disingenuous. When we look at stimulus, anything in the environment, anything at all that causes some sort of, what you said was that reaction. Bobby, that's exactly right. The rock doesn't react. It might change, but that's purely externally. Like, it's not doing it. Our body does do it. If I blister, that's my body blistering. So we'll just say any, excuse me, anything in the internal or external environment. External, I can spell. That elicits or causes a reaction. And I'm going to say causes because that's a little bit easier of a word. Causes a. Now, I'm going to sneak in another vocab here, but I don't want to have to define it. We're going to say reaction, which is not my vocab, but when we're talking about stimuli, the vocab word that I prefer we use is a response. So anything in the internal or external environment that we can do that will elicit or cause some sort of response or reaction. So there's a lot of different things that we test for stimulants. If I am in a coma, is it possible my brain still functions? Yes. Now I'm unconscious. I cannot show you, but there are things that one can check to see if that brain is still functioning in a person at any given time. For example, I want you real quick, close one eye like this. Okay, now we're going to get real close and comfortable with each other because I want you to, with somebody else in class, I want you to turn to them and have them watch your eye as you open it and see what happens. Is there stimulus there?
Wait, what?
And maybe that's too hard. Let me grab a flashlight and it'll make it easier.
What do we do?
I'm trying to see if we can elicit a response in our body without ever thinking about that response. So,
Oh, yeah.
okay, I'm pretty sure I'm alive right now. It'd be weird if I weren't, but, okay. Do you see my pupils?
Yeah.
Okay, what happens as I do this?
They turn smaller.
Like super small, right?
Yeah.
Okay, if somebody's, am I doing this? Like, am I thinking?
No.
Change the size of my eyes? No, my pupils dilate as in response to this stimulation, right? This is an external thing that I'm doing.
Oh,
If I'm in a coma, will it still happen?
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Wait, that's my doctor too.
Oh yeah, doctors will
Yeah.
do that. If you have a brain injury, like let's say you get like a nasty concussion and it's way worse than just a concussion, and I come and do this, it's possible that your eyes don't change.
And what's that?
It means that there's an issue with your brain and there's something severe that needs to be looked at immediately. Now, there's other ways to do it. Y'all have been to the doctor, and
Yeah. The thing.
I don't do that, right? Like I'm not doing that. I'm stimulating a nerve here. I don't know the exact, like I'm not a human anatomist. We'll get there hopefully. But like I'm not doing that. My knee is just doing that. Somebody in a coma, will their knee do it?
Should.
Yeah, absolutely. Unless their brain has ceased function. Now, there's that really weird philosophical and ethical idea of if somebody's in a coma and they are completely brain dead, are they alive? And that's not a question for me to answer. That's kind of a personal question. I know I have my own beliefs, but I don't know. I don't have a good argument. I could probably argue either way. What you got?
Wait, brain dead. If you're brain dead, right, that means like you don't get oxygen in your brain for like a minute.
Usually it'd be 3 minutes, but some people can hold their breath for a lot longer than 3 minutes too. It can be from a variety of different things. If somebody's brain dead, it means there's no electrical signals leaving their brain to control the body. Now, a lot of the time it means that they will never regain it. And if somebody's brain dead, they are kept alive via machines and modern medicine. However, from time to time, and for a reason that's still unknown, sometimes people can go from being completely brain dead to not being brain dead anymore because we still have a lot to learn about just the human brain and the mind and what it means to be conscious and things like that. Okay, so response to stimuli is something we have to see though. Now, that response, from a human perspective, it can be hard to tell. Do plants react to stimulus?
Yeah.
How?
Well, just certain
Sunlight, it will follow.
Yeah, if you've never seen it, if I'm a plant, and let's say I'm a beautiful flower. Okay, and the sun's over here. I'm gonna do this. Throughout the day, the earth is gonna spin and the sun's gonna appear like it's over here. Over the course of a day, you will physically see a plant do this, and it will follow it. You will see plants as they're growing, certain vines and things that we never see it because it happens on such a large time scale. But you'll have plants that, let's say I want a vine to grow up this. We'll just pretend of this. We don't get to see it, but as a vine pops out, like let's say it pops out here, it's not going to grab that. It does this, and it'll keep spinning and growing until it catches it, and then it'll start wrapping its way up. Like they react to the environment around them, but it happens so slowly that we oftentimes don't get to see that occur. Now, those sorts of stimulus are evidence that we have at least that characteristic of the requirements for life there. Okay, others. We have energy. We have, I'm going to say that this was really what led your guys' idea of movement. Yeah, I'm cool with it. I like it because it was really just that reaction to stimulus. Others. So we're made of cells, right? We need to be able to use energy. We have to respond to stimulus. Anything else that showed up on your guys' list? Okay, so I'm going to posit or suggest a couple. Life grows, I think. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, now the changes that one undergoes through the life cycle, again, with all these, it varies wildly depending on the sort of organism that you're looking at. But I'm going to use two different words to make sure we cover both cases. I'm going to say grow and develop. So in order to be classified as life, we have to grow and develop. Now, it can be strange when you start thinking about it. A single cell growing is a weird idea because a lot of our growth, especially in the early stages of our development, happens via cell division, which you can't have if it's a single cell. However, when we look at grow and develop, what we're really talking about, and just so we're all on the same page, we're going to sneak these in vocab. Growth. What does it mean for something to grow?
Either to adapt or like to like physically grow.
Okay, so physically grow. Could it be taller?
Yeah.
Could it be wider?
Yeah.
Could it be both? Okay, could it be just something inside of you grows larger?
Yeah.
Or smaller, like something changes, right? And that's that change in adaptation that you're talking about. We're going to say that growth in our situation, we're going to think of it as the addition. So we have to add something to it if we're growing, but the addition of mass, which is just stuff, whether it results in something growing in height or growing in width or growing in weight, the addition of mass that leads to new structure and function. Are you guys still growing? Yes. Now, you're at a developmental stage in your life where you're probably pretty close to what you're going to be roughly for the rest of your life with one small, like probably not. Some of you you'll get taller, you'll gain weight, you'll gain muscle. Are your brains still growing?
Yeah.
Yes. How long will your brains keep growing?
Until you die.
I wish. My brain's not growing anymore.
Oh.
About 25 is when your brain fully stops growing, which means your brain is still forming.
Why does it need to grow?
Because it's making more and more connections to help you function better. At this point, it's mostly intellectually, but it has to grow in order to like set up new structures, right? Babies don't know how to walk. As they get more cells and more connections are made and they start learning, we have to go. Pass it over, I'm sorry. We'll continue tomorrow. Guys, I appreciate the heck out of you. This is like maybe not always the most interesting stuff, but you help make it interesting, and that class flew just now. You guys rock. No homework. We might have to speed up a little bit though.